Welcome back to our second episode. We are going to continue from where we stopped in the previous video. So if you didn't watch part 1 for this video, I would recommend you to go back and watch it, then you can be in position to follow up. So we are going to continue with our question, and we are going to compute for PAYE for all our employees. But now, I told you before you compute for employee, you need to first master how a simple if works, and then after you can be in position to write a simple or a complex if statement. So what we are going to do is to add a comment to our employees basing on their hours worked. So for those employees whose hours worked are 50 and below, I want us to just add to them bad, and then for those employees whose hours worked are above 50, we comment to them good. So before I do that, I'm just going to show you how the syntax of the if, and then maybe we can come back to our Excel sheet and then input. So I just open up Word. So when it comes to the if statement in Excel, so just increase this a little bit. So an if statement must have an opening and closing bracket. Now inside those brackets there are three partitions. There's part 1, partition 1, partition 2, and partition 3. So in partition 1, this is where we put our condition, and in partition 2, this is where we put the value if true. Okay, so if our condition is true, the following partition is where you put the value if that condition true. Otherwise, value if the condition is what? False. Alright, so this is the syntax of an if statement in Excel. Right, so your values change depending on the condition. Alright, so we are going to go and follow this same syntax in our Excel sheet. Okay, so we want to comment to our employees like we said, basing on the hours worked. So if hours worked is less than 50, then what? So you see, whenever using an Excel formula, it guides you on which input it expects. The first time before I put in the condition, it was bolding the logical test. I told you the logical test is the same as the condition. So meaning that when it bolds this, it means that it is the one that is expecting you to pass. So you pass in the condition. If this is less than 50, then what? So when you put a separator or comma, then it bolds the second partition it expects. So what is the value if this cell C, if the value in cell C is less than 50? We want it to say this employee is bad. Right? Now, whenever you're using text, whenever you're inserting text into your if statement, you need to enclose it into double quotes. If it is a number, then you don't need to insert it into double quotes. So always note that. So then comma else. Good. So we close our if statement with a bracket and then press enter. So this employee is having 46, is bad. This one 30, bad. This one 90, good. So like that. So that's how a simple if works. Now let's go ahead and work on our PAYE. Alright, so for us to compute PAYE, for PAYE we are given additional information here, which we are going to follow. There are different categories of tax, of income, and the tax that corresponds to that category. The first category is that income that ranges between 0 and 130. Those ones are not taxed. But if that amount exceeds 130, then you need to check if it is less than 250. Then for this category, you compute for the tax year. Now, one other important thing when it comes to PAYE you need to be in position to interpret this additional information. So according to what we have, 10% of chargeable income that exceeds 130, meaning that we are going to get our chargeable income, which is our gross. We deduct 130, so we get 10% of the difference. Right. So we are going to see how it works. So let's go into our Excel sheet. So if, okay, our chargeable income, which is the gross, is less or equal. So I'm using less or equal because 130 is also not taxed. So if our chargeable income is less or equal to 130, then what? This tax is 0. Otherwise, we check. So if it is not in this category, we check for another category. If still the chargeable income is less or equal to 235, so we go ahead and insert in another if. If still our chargeable income is less or equal to 235,000, right? Then what? So we compute for our tax. It is 10% of the chargeable income that exceeds 130. It is 10% of our chargeable income that exceeds 130, meaning that we get 130, we get our chargeable income, deduct 130, and then we get the 10%. So if we want Excel to first get the deduction, what we do is to enclose our deduction into brackets so that it first deducts and then it gets the 10%. Right. So for that category that ranges below 235, this is the tax. Otherwise, still you put a comma on the else part. We still have another category that we are supposed to cater for, which is 235 and then 410. So we shall also nest in another if and say if still our chargeable income is less or equal to 410,000, then what? We compute for our tax, which is 20%, the same thing we did for the first category. So this is 20% of the chargeable income, alright, that exceeds what? We deduct 235,000, then plus 10,500 plus 10,500. Now we need to make sure that it first deducts. Alright, we want it to first deduct, then after deducting it gets the 20%. Alright, that's why I'm enclosing it into brackets. After getting the 20%, so that's when it is supposed to add on the 10,500. Alright, then we have the last category, which says above 410, meaning that now we don't need to add another if because this is our last condition. So we just go ahead and compute for the tax, which is 30% of chargeable income that exceeds 410, of chargeable income that exceeds 410,000, then plus 45,500, 45,500. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to enclose this into brackets so that it first gets the deduction, then after it gets the 30% of the difference, and then it can go ahead and add the 400 and adds the 45,500. So now we've done all our computations. So let's go ahead and close our if statements. I told you each if statement must have an opening and closing brackets. So the best way to close your ifs is to count them and say how many you have. So those are the closing brackets you must have. So we have 1, 2, and 3, meaning that we are supposed to have 3 closing brackets. 1, and whenever you close one, it highlights the one you're closing and gives it the same color. So you realize when I close this, it gives it purple, bolds the opening, showing you that it is closing this and gives it the same color. Now I close this, bolds this and gives this the same color. And then finally the last one, So you press enter. So that's how you compute for PAYE using an if statement. Alright, so let's proceed. Now we are supposed to compute for net salary for employees. Remember, net salary, for you to get net salary, net salary, for you to get net salary, it is you get your gross minus all the deductions. So it depends on how you want to do it, but one can first get the gross and then just subtract NSSF and then PAYE, like that. That can work. The other can say, let me get the gross, alright, then I deduct the sum, okay, sorry, you get the gross, then minus the sum of the deductions, right? So this, and then the other can say, let me get the gross, alright, I'm showing you different approaches. You get the gross, then minus into brackets this plus this, like that, then press enter. So all the approaches can work, so you use the one that you see is easy for you. Alright, so we are required to format our figures with no decimal places. So this brings in a concept of cell formatting. Excel gives you a provision of formatting your cells in any way that you want. So we want to format our amounts into UGX. So what I will do is to get this, and also you highlight the different figures that you want to format. So I don't want to format the comments into UGX, right? So after highlighting, then you right click, look for format cells. Okay, so we are formatting currency, so under number, then currency. They have told us with no decimal places, so we shall reduce this to 0, and then currency we look for UGX, which is this. Then you go ahead and press OK. So whenever you get these many hashes, it means the text inside is bigger than the cell size. So you just auto adjust your cell so that the figures can fit. Right. So we are required to insert a 3D exploded pie chart in our new sheet. Okay, and showing employee names and net salary. So what you do is to highlight the employee names. Now for you to highlight two different columns, after highlighting the first one, press Ctrl, then go and look for the next one and highlight while pressing the Ctrl key on your keyboard. Then after, go to insert and pie charts, then look for the exploded pie chart, which is that. Alright, the one they have told us. Perfect. So I'm just going to cut it by pressing Ctrl X on my keyboard, and then I go to the other sheet and paste it there. Right, so yes, that's about it. And we are supposed to copy the data and filter out employees whose net pay is between 2 million and 5 million. Alright, so we are going to copy our data and filter. So we are going to see how to filter data in Excel. So what I will do is to just copy the entire table and paste it to a new sheet. I'll add just these ones here. Just to make it look a little bit better. Alright, this is good. Okay, so we are going to filter this data. We are going to filter out employees whose net pay is between 2 million and 5 million. Alright, so we are going to just click anywhere in your data, then look for the filter. Alright, look for the filter under data, then there is this filter tool, then you press it. It is going to add drop downs to your headers of the table. Alright, so we are filtering out employees based on their net pay. So you go to the net salary, then we want to filter between. So they are saying which is between 2 million and 5 million, meaning that you go to filter, click on the column that you're filtering with, then look for between, because now we are filtering between numbers. If it was greater than, we go to greater than. If it is less than, you go to less than. Okay, but here we are filtering between a range. So you go to between, and then the greater one and the less one. So if it is greater than or equal to 2 million, alright, this is 2 million, and then 5 million. Okay, we put in our range and then press OK. So it is going to filter out those employees who fall within that range. Right. So now we got another component that is so important. Right, so we are required to compute for the net pay, for the net pay subtotals for each change in gender. What this ideally means, when we go back to our data, we are supposed to sum up. We get the subtotal for net salary, but for each change in gender, meaning that it is going to come gender, female, female, and then when it finds a change, it sums up this one. Then it gets this. When it finds a change, it sums up this one. Gets this. When it finds a change, sums up this. Then it gets this. When it finds a change, sums up this. We are going to see how this works. So what we are going to do is to first highlight our information, and then still under data, you go to subtotal under outline. Alright. Okay. So we are going to sum at each change in gender. Alright, at each change in gender we are summing up, so we don't change this, and then we are getting subtotals for the net salary. Then you just press OK. So it will get for you that subtotals for the net salary, depending on the gender. You see, for female total, this male, like that. So that's about it. And I believe at this point you can be in position to draft a simple payroll for your organization, for your firm or enterprise, depending on what you want to achieve. Okay, this brings us to the end of our video. Thank you so much.